Hi everyone, my name is Tony Vallejo. I'm a CPA here in town at Nicholson & Schwartz, partner at Nicholson & Schwartz, but more importantly, and the reason I'm here today, is I am president of the board for United Boys and Girls Club. I'm also alumni of the Carpinteria Club, and my son is alumni of the Goleta Club. So we have a long history with the clubs, and I'm blessed to have them in my life and my son's life, and I'm so happy to be here today. And thank you all for taking the time to come to our annual meeting. I know if you're like me, you wish we were doing this as we traditionally do at the Santa Barbara Club for breakfast, but unfortunately that's not the world we live in right now. But we'll look forward to seeing you all, hopefully in the near future, but definitely next year at next year's annual meeting. This year, to say the least, has been challenging for everybody, not just the clubs, but especially at the clubs. But we made it through, and we only made it through because of the great support we had from our donors, our supporters, our collaborators, the staff, and board of directors that have all participated. We have truly become better together this year. We have an awesome program for you today, filled with some incredible guest speakers, and I want to start by thanking them for their time today. Today you will hear from Steve Ortiz, who's President and CEO of the United Way of Santa Barbara County, Catherine Brzezowski, Executive Director of the Audacious Foundation, Luis Mendez, Associate Technical Account Manager for Yardi and an alum of the clubs. And of course, we will hear from I almost skipped one. We will also hear from one of my fellow board members, David Bolton, Vice President of the board, and of course our staff, Michael Baker, our CEO, and Executive Vice President, Lori Leese. So without further ado, I want to go ahead and introduce our next speaker, David Bolton. David was the president of the Santa Barbara Club and now joined our board as Vice President and future President of the United Boys and Girls Club. David is going to talk to us a little bit about the merger, but before he does, I just want to thank David personally. He was instrumental in making that merger happen, and as David tells you a little bit about how things are going, you'll see why that was so important and why it's made us better together. So David, I want to thank you personally, and I want to ask you to take over here for a minute and tell us a little bit about the merger.
Tony, thank you so much, and welcome to everybody, and it's a pleasure to be participating in this great annual meeting. Tony, likewise to you. This merger, as you know, went on for many months to pull it all together, and it was a pleasure working with you. You were very instrumental in making it possible, and it was a pleasure to work with you throughout the process. I also, before talking about the merger, would like to thank both boards. There was a merger committee set up, representatives from each organization that worked so hard, and the entire boards did. After the merger committee meetings, we'd go back and discuss it with our respective boards that also offered input. And Michael and Lori also were great throughout the process. Lori is the executive director at the Downtown Club, and Michael Baker is the CEO of United, really gave the support needed for both boards to bring this together. Mergers can be tough. Mergers in a normal year can be tough. This merger came after efforts for almost 40 years. And during COVID, it did pose some challenges at the end. We actually were able to successfully begin the merger on July 1st. Right in the middle of the pandemic. And, you know, Michael and the entire staff was working so hard in those moments with food distribution. And there were so many discussions Michael was having with so many people about opening up the clubs. And eventually that happened. And they continue to be open. And they're providing a great service, a service to those that are doing homeschooling and maybe potentially do not have the resources in order to do that. And the Boys Club gives that place for them to go on a daily basis. Mergers, why are they important? Well, this one, right off the bat, operations became a very important benefit of this merger. When you bring two organizations together, there's a joining of services, synergies in so many areas. And the operations budget, when that is able to be brought down in an organization like the Boys and Girls Club, that results in better programs, more services for the youth. And that's really what we're all here for, and that is the youth. The Boys and Girls Clubs in any community play a very important role. We saw it in the opening video, just how they can touch and begin not only friendships, but also serve as a platform for all of our youth to have a better future. And together, this merger has been successful. We're in the early stages of it. We just have finished 6 months. It's been going great. Michael at the helm as CEO has really shown the passion that he has for all the clubs, now also with the Downtown Club. The Downtown Club's better. United will be better. Everyone's under the same umbrella. Everybody's working together, all for the same cause, and that is to make the Boys and Girls Clubs, the United Boys and Girls Clubs, as strong as they can be. Tony, back to you.
Thank you, David. And again, thank you for your help with the merger. I agree with you 100%. It's gone really, really well. We're blessed to have the Santa Barbara Club as part of the family now. We're blessed to bring over their staff, especially Lori Lease, who's been instrumental in helping us continue the great work we do. And it's really important to a community our size. There is no reason to have separate clubs. We all live right on top of each other in this small little town we call home. And we should be able to bring our kids together so that they can build those relationships. And that's what we're doing now. So again, David, thank you so much for your help. And thank you to everybody at the Santa Barbara Boys and Girls Club for coming to join us. Now I'm going to turn this over in just a second to our CEO, Michael Baker. Many of you already know Michael because he is everywhere, working hard all the time. I only say this when I'm forced to like now, but Michael, I'm kidding. Michael is amazing. We are blessed to have him as our CEO. I can tell you where we were before Michael got here years ago and where we are now is night and day. And that is because of the leadership and the effort and the work that he puts in to do that. So I'm going to embarrass him a little bit. Maybe he'll even be blushing when he gets on camera here right now. But we are blessed to have Michael as our CEO, and the community and our kids are blessed to have Michael in our community. So without any further ado, Michael, please take over.
Thank you, Tony. Very, very kind words. I'm extremely humbled to be the CEO of the United Boys and Girls Club, Santa Barbara County. And David, thank you for your kind words about the merger as well. And it's been an absolute pleasure working hand in hand with Lori, coming over to the United Boys and Girls Clubs, and we've only just begun. So Lori, thank you for all your efforts and everything that the mergers brought forth for the Boys and Girls Clubs. As you can imagine, this is a very unique past year for everybody, but running a nonprofit organization over the past 12 months has been extremely challenging. The most challenging of my 33-year career in Boys and Girls Club work. This is by far the most challenging year. But like everything else, you find out what you're really made of when you're tested. And we've been able to step up, and it took everybody to make that happen. A lot of folks. And before I get into my planned remarks, I wanted to give a special thank you to three individuals who really stepped up big time financially to support Boys and Girls Clubs. That would be Paul and Jane Orfila with the Audacious Foundation, and Virgil Elings. Because of their efforts, we were able to open our clubs and make sure that we didn't turn any child away. So God bless the three of you and all the other folks that supported Boys and Girls Clubs. Thank you as well. So January started like any other year in Boys and Girls Clubs. And we had as you can see in the lower left corner there, we had our Youth of the Year judging. We always put together an outstanding panel of judges. And we went through that process, and we had our last virtual fundraiser in early March of last year. And then everything changed. Everybody's world changed. On March 16th, you can go to the next slide. On March 16th, we met actually at 5:08 in the morning. I remember the time because I took a picture of it, at the Lompoc Unified School District headquarters. And the superintendent of the schools, Trevor McDonald, who's a great supporter of Boys and Girls Clubs and also an alum of Boys and Girls Clubs, called a meeting. And we were there along with our club director and our assistant club director to see what we could do to help the schools, because the schools weren't going to be reopening. What we did at that point was immediately pivot. And we turned our clubs into food distribution centers, all of our clubs. We went from serving kids on a daily basis, which we weren't allowed to do with COVID at that point, to handing out food. Over the next 3 months, we handed out food to over 110,000 individuals. And that was made possible in partnership with the Santa Barbara Food Bank. Thank you, everybody at Santa Barbara Food Bank, for helping to provide the food for us to hand out to the families. You deserve all the credit. Also, during that time period, we unfortunately, during the April through June time period, we said goodbye to the founder of the United Boys and Girls Clubs, the man that brought it all together, Mr. George Cellini. I'll never fill his shoes, just like I always say, I'll never fill Sal Rodriguez's shoes either. But we'll just keep this legacy going. And George, I know you're watching over us. Also, lower left corner there, you'll see a photo of a gentleman named Dana Newquist from the Barker Foundation. Tremendous supporters of Boys and Girls Clubs and many other charities as well. But if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have been able to reopen our doors as quickly as we were able to. Next slide, please. The other, July through September, this is when we really started serving kids again. The merger had just happened. The very first club that we reopened was the Downtown Boys and Girls Club. We took all of our club directors from every one of our clubs, the strongest staff that we had, and we brought them to the downtown club. We trained everybody there on the new COVID standards. And it was the best staff I've ever had in my life. Having those folks working directly with the kids was fantastic. And we were able to then replicate how we reopened the downtown club at all of our other sites. And you can see in the photo there as well, the one I'll point out, you see the kids in their masks. There's a group of gentlemen in the lower right-hand corner. Those are alums of the Downtown Boys and Girls Club. I had the pleasure of meeting them. And we went over, they brought all these photos from the history, 1938, all the way back to 1938. We had photos that were just fantastic. And as a Boys and Girls Club professional, it really did my heart good to meet those folks and listen to their stories. But there's two individuals at the very top of the screen that I want to highlight, and that's Brenda Blaylock and Alan Porter. As you may recall, in 2017, the Whittier fire happened. That actually was at Camp Whittier, our camp. And we suffered significant damage at camp. Well, I'm happy to report to you that the camp has been rebuilt, and Alan and Brenda didn't sponsor one cabin, didn't sponsor two, but sponsored 3 cabins. So Alan and Brenda, thank you for your tremendous support, and look forward to reopening Camp Whittier to the entire community for a nice community celebration for all of you that helped us get that reopened. Look for that coming, hopefully, in the near future. Next slide, please. October through December. A lot of holidays obviously happened from Halloween all the way up to New Year's Eve. And we made sure we still celebrated those with the kids at the clubs. We had a farm in Goleta that donated pumpkins for all of our kids at our clubs, and they carved them and they colored them and took them home. We also had a wonderful Thanksgiving meal that was prepped by Steve and all the wonderful folks at I'm drawing a blank on the name. Yep, Country Catering. Thank you very much, Tina. Country Catering. I drew a blank on his name. Been a tremendous supporter of the clubs. Thank you, Steve. And we made sure that all of our families had a nice, healthy Thanksgiving meal. Also, you'll see in there the gardens that were built by our very own Rich Ridgway, who's in the upper left-hand corner. And that's a check that was presented to him which turned around our organization completely. At that point, we were debt-free at that point as an organization. And during a very challenging time, we were able to still keep our head above water. And in the lower right-hand corner, you'll see Mr. Michael Paskin, also an alum of Boys and Girls Clubs, who made sure that at all of our clubs we had a Breakfast with Santa program at the Boys and Girls Clubs. He and his team came out, and thank you, Michael. It's a wonderful memory that I will never forget. Next slide, please. Now the part of the program where we, again, having to pivot, as you're all aware, the children, my own included, have not been able to really go back to traditional schooling this entire school year. And because of the support of our next speaker and the United Way of Santa Barbara County, they helped raise money to help offset some of the costs for us to operate our programs at the Boys and Girls Club for those kids that need it the most. And we were able to turn our clubs into community learning centers at our Carpinteria Club, our West Side, our Downtown Club, and our Goleta Club. And now we're able to allocate some resources to our Lompoc Club as well. But we wanted to make sure that those kids had a level playing field and an opportunity to get on their Zoom sessions. For most of our kids, just keep this in mind, most of the children that we serve do not have even a computer at home, let alone access to the internet. So it was so critical that we were able to level the playing field and that the United Way stepped up big time. And with that, I would like to introduce to you the CEO and President of the United Way of Santa Barbara County, Mr. Steve Ortiz.
Thank you, Michael, for the introduction and for having us participate today in the annual meeting. I also do wish that we could be in person with all of you, celebrating the success and the work of the Boys and Girls Club. I'm here to talk a little bit about what we've done in partnership with the United Way Boys and Girls Club and really focusing on the learning centers that we put together in collaboration with many funders and many partners coming together to address that need. We started as a spinoff, and Catherine's on as a panelist here as well. But during the early months through the Emergency Child Care Initiative and really seeing the need of care for children, especially for the healthcare providers, through those discussions, we also learned and started realizing that many students would need support as school closures were imminent. And once our Governor Newsom made the announcement that schools would close, it was a need for many school districts to develop a program to support students. In fact, the schools themselves tallied the number of students who may need the support, and it was over 13,000 students who they assigned as students who would need to receive some type of additional support through a program. That number is overwhelming, but we have been able to provide over 550 students access to computers, to adult supervision, to food, and to care and interaction with other students through the Learning and Enrichment Centers Collaborative. At the moment, we're at 10 different sites across the county, 10 different nonprofits participating, including the Boys and Girls Club, with the Boys and Girls Club holding the largest amount of students, with over 220, I believe, students currently participating through scholarship at the clubs. And it's a huge benefit. We hear from the families who are not able to participate, the lack of access to computers, to adult supervision. We still hear actually of many students who have not logged in one single minute of school curriculum and work because they do not have that access. So through the Boys and Girls Club, they're able to do that. They're able to interact with their educators. They're able to interact with adults in front of them and help them log in and access their work. And they're able to interact with other peers their own age for that social emotional component as well. So the work of the Boys and Girls Club in partnership with United Way and in partnership with many other funders, nonprofits, and organizations has been tremendous during this difficult time. The need continues. We're happy that we were able to relaunch this work. Initially, we had open from September to December, hoping that schools would reopen, but then realizing that they would not in 2021. And we have relaunched to continue to support students through the end of the school year. So again, thank you for having us here today. Thank you for the partnership. This could not be done by one single organization, really the ability of many coming together to address a community need. And just the benefit of the Boys and Girls Club quickly raising their hand and saying we could do it, and Michael sending me photos of empty rooms and classrooms saying like, look, Steve, I have space, send me more. And that continues on. So thank you, Michael, for your support. Lori as well, who's involved with the Boys and Girls Club. Appreciate the partnership and appreciate that we're doing this together.
Okay, well, thank you, Steve. I'm looking forward to thanking you in person in the near future, hopefully sometime this year. But thank you to Steve and the United Way. Even though we've kept you in the loop, you have no idea what an impact that program made on a lot of kids in our community who desperately needed that help. And thanks to you guys, we were able to do that. So thank you. Speaking about programs and helping the kids in our community, I now want to talk to you a little bit about our Smart Journeys program that you're going to be seeing a couple of slides of here in just a second. This was a new program we introduced this year, and it really came at the request of a donor. Paul and Jane Orfila reached out to us, specifically Lori Lease. You guys can't see Lori, but she's right there. I keep waving. Specifically Lori Lease, and asked us, are we doing any physical outdoor activities? This was, of course, in the heart of the COVID shutdown, and kids were trapped in their homes. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but they really were, right? They weren't allowed to do a lot of things. And so they came to us and asked, are we doing any physical outdoor activities? And so that started the conversation. And through working with them, collaborating with them, we did come up with a program that we, again, obviously call Smart Journeys, where we do give these kids an opportunity to get outside and enjoy some, whether it's sports or yoga or gardening or a combination of all of them. They get to go out and do that every day after school from 3 to 6, 5 days a week at, I think, all of our clubs. We offer those programs, and it just varies from day to day what they get to do. Any given day, you might go to Goleta and see the kids doing outdoor yoga, or you might go down to the downtown club and see them gardening in the garden beds we have over there. All of this would not be possible without Paul and Jane Orfila and their foundation, the Audacious Foundation. We're truly blessed to have them as supporters of our organization, and as a way of elaborating on this and giving them a chance to tell their story, we've invited Catherine Rosowski, hopefully, Catherine, I pronounced that correctly, who's the CEO of the Audacious Foundation, to talk a little bit more about Smart Journeys. Catherine, thank you so much for your support, and I'm going to turn it over to you so you can tell us a little bit more. Thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure. I'm really grateful to follow Steve in some of these presentations, because the work that the United Way has been leading in recognizing the needs of our kids is immense. So when COVID hit, our foundation, Audacious Foundation, is focused on whole child education. So we're really interested in supporting the health and wellness interests of kids. healthy habits are essential life skills. And with school closures, we had to pivot. We had to find a new way to reach students. And we heard a really urgent need to focus on student wellness, that kids were suffering so much in this pandemic. And Jane and Paul Orfila met with Michael and Lori. And Michael, while you are very kind to speak about the adaptability of your team, it's actually you, Michael, who's been so responsive to saying, we're here and we're ready. We want to support kids in whatever is needed. And you opened up the clubs really rapidly. So our conversations for launching Smart Journeys was kind of parallel when United Way was talking about opening the learning centers. And we were pleased to be able to offer a $500,000 grant to reopen 8 of the Boys and Girls Clubs. But this happened also with Virgil Ealings. And I think Virgil might be on this call. And our huge gratitude to him for matching us with the same opportunity. So what we were interested in is focusing on physical movement for kids. How are we getting kids to be active? Because movement and learning are intertwined. Our brains are activated through movement. And when people are exercising, they get supplemental glucose, oxygen in their brain that triggers new neurons, and they can't learn without being active. And Paul Orfila kept talking about, if they have a year of being stagnant, how are we ever going to have these kids catch up? The harm this is going to do on generations is just unacceptable. And Lori right there said, no, we're ready. We want to get kids moving and active. So recess wasn't happening, PE wasn't happening, before and after school playtime wasn't happening. And they had the ability for kids to be running around in the grass, playing soccer, doing yoga, dancing around, doing Zumba. They had the equipment. Everything became more expensive in COVID, right? And so we looked at that and still said, we're willing, let's figure this out. So United Boys and Girls Club was the first for us. And it was a test to see if something is built, are kids going to show up? Are families in the community comfortable? As Steve mentioned, we'd already done an emergency childcare initiative. And a lot of families don't have the option of staying at home. They are essential workers. They have to go to work every single day. It's the only way they make money. They can't be home with their kids doing virtual school from home. And so United Boys and Girls Club built it, and we watched the numbers really closely. Our target was 530 kids. And I asked Lori far too often, like, what are your numbers? What are your numbers? I asked her yesterday, what are your numbers? And there are 534 kids that are there every day. That's unduplicated. They are reaching kids from Carpinteria all the way up to Lompoc. A couple of the sites have 80 students a day. Carp and West Side, Lompoc and downtown are in the 70s. Other sites are a little bit lower. It really depends upon those enrichment centers, but we're able to provide a full day for students so that they are able to be involved in healthy movement and dance. And this is what these students need. They're emotionally supported by being able to be active. Like, that's how kids process emotions as well. So, we really hope that this is an opportunity for stabilizing kids who are also experiencing this pandemic in their own ways. We are so grateful to the clubs. And again, for us, this was our first investment, but this being the pilot of if it's built, will it come, has been really informative for our granting portfolio, so that we have funded a number of other out-of-school sites using this as the model. And this is the information that, yes, they do show up. So we did also support Boys and Girls Club of Mid-Central Coast and other nonprofits up and down Santa Barbara County. But the lessons that came from working with Michael and Lori have been really helpful. We are just appreciative of the adaptation, the willingness to take risks, to keep the kids front and center in mind, and have your staff willing to support them. It's been fabulous. Michael spoke about the reopening for Camp Whittier, and we are excited that there will be open family days coming up this spring for the kids to be able to go to Camp Whittier, experience the new ropes courses, the zip line, hike, swim, be kids and be out in nature. So that might happen April 3rd, we hope, fingers crossed. And it's for all low-income kids in the community to be able to attend. So this has been a win-win partnership. Lori, Michael, thank you. Thanks to all the clubs.
Catherine, thank you so much. I feel the same way. When I saw those kids at Yoga and Goleta Club, and then I saw the kids, actually the lights went down in the Lompoc Club, and I went, what are they doing in the gym? They were actually laying there and doing their meditation after their yoga class. Boys and Girls Club, mind you. It was great. This is amazing. In 2020, as Michael said, we served far less kids, but we served 1,874 kids, down from the year before due to the closures brought on by the pandemic and the health restrictions, limiting the number of kids that we could have. But the ones that we did serve in the programs, it had a huge impact on every single kid and their family. Over 3 years ago, I created what I call the Soul of the Club. It's a program that an organization runs. It's not really cost efficient. It doesn't make sense, but it encapsulates what the organization is all about. It's actually why we exist. It's called the Soul of the Club, and the Soul of the Club is our kids. And this is one of the stories. Gabriel had been coming to the club since he was in kindergarten. If I could highlight just one kid that was always smiling, that would be Gabe. When we closed in March and the club was empty, and I mean empty, no sounds, nothing, it was difficult for me. And one of the smiles I miss seeing every day was Gabe's. Then in April, we started our virtual programming, so we were able to see the kids, virtually. And Gabe was one of the first kids to sign up. In the after-school Zoom sessions, he could not wait to show us his latest school project, a report and poster board he did on Neil Armstrong. He yells out, "Wait a minute, I'll be right back." And he leaves, and I thought, okay, well, what is he getting? And he comes back in with a full-blown Neil Armstrong astronaut suit on that him and his mom had made for the report. Well, everybody knows this about me. I started crying, of course. It was just so phenomenal, and he was so proud. In the summer, we opened up a free hot supper program on Fridays. It was great, and Gabe's mom, a single parent, was extremely grateful for the hot meal on Friday that could feed her whole entire family over the weekend. Gabe started in September for our full-day learning enrichment programs, and his mom had mentioned to me before school start, she's an essential worker, and she was really worried about what she was going to do with Gabe because she didn't want to leave him at home alone, and she didn't know what she was going to do. She told me that without the scholarship she received, she would not be able to do this, and that was one of the kids that really was impacted through our programming, all the way from virtual programming to our learning and enrichment centers. And Gabe's still there at the club. He comes every day, and we're so grateful. When you hear this club, and you will hear this often in our town, this club saved my life. Well, it not only saves the child's life, it saves the whole family. I want to thank every one of you guys for helping us this past year. It's been so difficult. We've had some highs and some lows, but as Michael said, I really want to focus on the highs because I think it's amazing. And we couldn't do it without you guys. And we are so thankful for every single person that supported us. The Soul of the Club, I hope this fills your soul for the day.
My journey with the United Boys and Girls Club started approximately 13 years ago, where I worked as an activity leader at our Hapgood ACES site. I slowly worked my way up through the ranks, becoming site supervisor of the Hapgood ACES site, and then moved on to program director. And then a little over 3 years ago, I was promoted to club director. One of the things that I take most pride in being a club director is being a support to the kids that fall through the cracks. The ones that are sometimes often labeled as troubled kids, those are the kids that need us most. Growing up, I was labeled a troubled child, so I have a soft spot for those kids that are labeled, because you don't have to be what society tells you you are.
You just saw an example of an outstanding staff member that we have leading our clubs. That was Davika Stalling, our Lompoc Club Director. More on that later with Tony in a few minutes. But I just wanted to say, it's, as I've said before, it's an absolute honor to lead this team. And behind every organization, every nonprofit CEO is only as strong as their board. And what I say to folks all the time is, if you want to find out how strong your board is, have a crisis. See who ends up showing up to meetings when you have a crisis. Who writes a check when it's tough to make payroll. That's a dedicated board. And I can tell you right now, in my 33 plus years in Boys and Girls Club work, this is the best board I've ever had, by far. And I wanted to highlight individuals on the board. You can see their names on the screens there, but just a few people I wanted to touch base on. Obviously, our great board president, Tony Vallejo, who's not only a great board president, but he's an alum of Boys and Girls Clubs. And he's also a parent of a child who's an alum of Boys and Girls Clubs as well. You can't put a value on that. David Bolton, thank you for your leadership during the whole transition from the merger, making that happen. Appreciate all your support and all the phone calls that we had together to talk through that. Our treasurer, I hesitated on whether to use this line or not, but it's the truth. She is by far the most dedicated board member I've ever had in my career, ever. And she is incredibly good at stretching the dollars. We do a great job of stretching the dollars in Boys and Girls Clubs. What I say is, Louise is so good at stretching the dollars, she could actually make wine out of raisins. Okay, that's how good Louise is. She's fantastic. Dave, and then obviously Dr. Carol Del Cello. Hopefully she's able to participate and see this video. I want to thank you, Carol, and I know right now you're very busy giving out the vaccine shots to those individuals in Santa Barbara County. Thank you for the work that you're doing and all of your colleagues, but also your dedication to Boys and Girls Clubs. And we also have our board member, Chris Lueck, formerly of FastSpring, but who is chairing our marketing committee. Thank you, Chris, for all your efforts. And also, I just wanted to make sure that I ended by thanking one individual in particular, and that would be Peter Musinich. We've had several issues that come up whenever you're dealing in Boys and Girls Clubs, minor legal things to some significant legal things that you have to deal with. Peter has stepped up every single time and never charged us a dime for his services. Thank you, Peter, for everything you've done for Boys and Girls Clubs on behalf of all the kids. And with that, I would like to bring up Tony to talk about our staff.
Thank you, Michael. And thank you. And let me personally thank our board as well. That was just a few of the names. We could spend all day talking about the different commitments and efforts and work that every one of our board members has participated in. Whenever there's a call, they're there. So that is by no means a comprehensive list, but we don't want to keep you here all day talking about what great board members we have. We do want to talk about our staff as well. You saw that video just a minute ago about Davika. She is a great example of the amazing people we have working in our clubs. That award that Davika won in Lompoc was long overdue. No complaints to Lompoc, but she deserves that for a long time. And we have a lot of staff just like her who just love to work with our kids. In a year like this, a challenging year like we just had, they literally took their health in their own hands coming to help these kids because you're having to expose yourself to COVID. And we all know that can be a little scary, but they did it willingly. They were out there with these kids, keeping them as safe as possible, and did an amazing job. I always tell people, if you want to see how great our clubs are doing, go when you can. Don't go to the clubs right now. But when you're allowed to go back to the clubs, go check them out. You're going to see a lot of happy kids. You're going to see a lot of happy staff because they love what they do, and they do it tirelessly without any need for thanks, but we all want to thank them anyway. So guys, I won't try and list all your names because I can't, but I want to thank you all personally on behalf of the board and the community for everything you've done for us, for everything you've done for our kids. Now we're going to take an opportunity for our last speaker. He, much like myself, is an alum of our clubs. Michael mentioned this to you, and so I can speak personally about how important these clubs are. I'm tapping my chest. I got to stop doing that. Because I was an alum member. I remember Rich Medell down in Carpinteria leading our club. More recently, much more recently, my son was an alum of the Goleta Club, and I know all the fond memories he has from playing basketball there and everything else. These clubs are incredibly important to kids in our community. And we're, as you saw in some of the videos we've talked about. And right now, I want to give an opportunity to Luis Mendez to speak a little bit about his experience as an alum of our club and tell us a little bit about his experience and what the clubs mean to him. So Luis, thank you for joining us, and I'm going to let you take it away from here.
Thanks, Tony. And hello, everyone. My name is Luis Mendez. I am honored to be here with you all as I share my story and the critical role that the Boys and Girls Club plays in our communities. I was raised here in Santa Barbara and grew up on the west side near Bonnet Park. I was not around the best people growing up and soon found myself going down the wrong path. I was peer pressured into fights as it was a common theme around my neighborhood due to the high gang activity in the area. Drugs were seen as being part of the cool club and everybody wanted to be cool. At the time, my family and I were beneficiaries of the food bank that was set up at the Westside Boys and Girls Club. We would often go there to get our groceries, and one day I found myself inside the club. I saw kids my age doing homework, doing sports, playing card games, and having fun. It was something that was new to me. I told my mom if I could stay, and she signed me up. Later on, my parents couldn't keep up with the membership fees, and the Boys and Girls Club stepped in to cover those fees, so I remained a club kid. The club provided me with a safe, peaceful environment where I could ask questions about my homework. I was not the best student starting off, but over time, I made huge leaps. My grades improved, all thanks to the teaching assistants that worked with me one-on-one. My parents didn't know English, and they were always too busy, so they couldn't help me with my homework. I went from underperforming to student of the month, but more importantly, it took me away from being around the wrong people and being pulled further and further into gang activity. At the club, I started making friends, and I soon joined the soccer team. I learned the sport as well as important social skills like communication, sharing, listening, eye contact, just to name a few. I was part of the team for many years, and we were back-to-back champions for a number of those years. I have about 7 championships as a Boys and Girls Club player. I call those the golden years. I have one right here. If you guys could see it, it says Westside Boys and Girls Club, Spring, Undefeated Champs, Luis Mendez. I grew older and I no longer could be part of the team because of the age restriction, but I still wanted to be part of the club. So I volunteered to be the head coach of the soccer team since I knew the facility, the faculty, and the values of the club. I don't know how many of you guys remember Bernard Hicks, but Bernard Hicks had a great faith in me, and we both spearheaded the project for many seasons to come. I became champion twice as a coach, but each season was special whether we were champions or not. Everyone had a great time, and that was my main goal. I have a plaque of here when I was champion. I always keep it here. It's very special to me. I did all my community service at the club for 5 years, and it was an honor since I was teaching the sport to the next generation along with developing their social skills. I knew the responsibility I had to develop the youth into the best possible versions of themselves on and off the field, and it was a privilege. The club raised me and redirected me to the right path. I can confidently say that I would not be here where I am today without the club. Many of my friends that I grew up with fell further into gang activities, and the lucky ones have been in and out of jail, while others were not so lucky. The club provided me with all the resources I needed to develop a strong foundation, and it molded me into the best version of my young self. From there, I went on to be the first college graduate of my family. I was on the dean's list several times and graduated on the chancellor's honor list with a bachelor's of science in economics. I am involved in my community and attend city forums and speak out about changes we need. I try to be the best citizen I can be, and all that comes from a strong foundation that the club gave me. Many of the youth and gangs today don't know any other way of life. That is how I was. I thought it was the only path, the only choice. It's a tunnel vision. So once I saw a different reality being at the club, it snapped me awake. I no longer had this tunnel vision. I didn't have to be like my friends around me. The club showed me art, dance, sports, music, friendship, you name it. The club provides the youth with a choice regardless of what neighborhood you grew up in. I know very well growing up on the west side that is indeed the case. During these COVID times, the club plays an even bigger role in our communities. Many kids may be at home unable to receive help with their homework due to the language barrier, which was the same issue I had growing up. Many kids might be in a dark place and feel neglected due to stressful times as parents are laid off or working multiple jobs and arguments are easier to be sparked. Kids don't need this kind of stress. They need to feel valued. They need to be listened to, taught. They need to be part of a club. Doubling down now is how we counter the pandemic's impact. We cannot afford to not invest in the children's welfare. The club did it for me many years ago, and now they need the resources today to keep doing what they've always been doing. The club has been shaping great minds in a caring and safe environment for many years now. I am proud to be a club kid, and we will look back on this day on how we mobilized our resources and adapted to get through these difficult times united. With that, thank you for taking a moment to listen to me, and I'll turn it back over to you guys. Thank you.
Wow. I'm blown away. That's the first time I've heard Luis speak. And I can tell you, we are so proud of what you're doing right now, Luis, but also what you've done. I mean, you started out as a member of the Boys and Girls Club. You volunteered to help run soccer programs at the Boys and Girls Club. The next step, as I said to Tony, is I think you need to be a board member. I'm just saying, I think you'd be an outstanding board member. But Luis, thank you. You knocked it out of the park. And again, right there is an example of what Boys and Girls Clubs do. You see right there a perfect example of why I always say I love my job. I love my job because I know it works. I know what we do makes a difference. And the staff that work in the clubs are so dedicated. And the board does everything it can to help us, give us the resources to make sure that we never, ever, ever turn a child away. So on behalf of everybody that not only works for the Boys and Girls Club, but the board members, and most importantly, the children that come to our clubs, I want to thank you for being here today. And not only those of you that have supported us in the past, but we need your support going forward as well. So on behalf of all those folks, I want to say thank you and have a great day.